Hey, Soraya,
Hey, Jeff.
look at your shirt. I think we're color coded.
Are we?
I think so.
Woo!
Nice. We didn't even plan it that way.
No, we don't usually dress alike, but
No,
this
we
was good.
don't. No, we don't.
Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners who we're talking to today? I'm pretty excited about this one. Oh, wait.
What?
Before we get started, I want to do a little show and tell.
Go.
I almost forgot about that. Look what I got this week. It's a little itty bitty Bangles CD. It's got 3 of the songs from the EP. It's got The Real World, Mary Street, and I'm in Line. And the version of The Real World is a different version. It's a remix that David Kahn did before he got to work on the All Over the Place album. But it's pretty cool. It's a little CD I got this week, but I wanted that to be my show and tell.
That is awesome.
Pretty cool. But Bangles related.
Yes. Today we are talking to the wonderful, fantastic, and amazing Derrick Anderson.
Yes.
Woo! A great artist of his own work, but many listeners may know him from quite a few Bangles tours, plus a number of other projects that he's involved in.
Yes.
So we're excited to talk to him. And Jeff, I'm very jealous of that mini single that you just showed. But I say let's get started.
Let's do it.
Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff.
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme.
A podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a grooviar.
Let's get groovy. All right, we're going to admit Mr. Anderson.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Hey, how do you know?
It is great to have you on the show.
Ah, thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, we're very excited to get to talk to you, Derrick, today. We have quite a few questions that we wanted to ask you spanning your career. So, starting from the beginning, Soraya, I think, was our thought?
Yes. You know, Derrick, a number of our listeners may already be very familiar with your work. But for those who may not be, could you just share with our listeners how you got into music and playing the bass?
How to make a long story short. Basically, for me, I think it all started being a kid of the 60s. I was born in 63, and AM radio at the time was a major, huge influence on me. We, being from Toledo, CKLW was the station that I would listen to. And I can remember, you get in the backseat of the car, the first thing you say is, "Turn on the radio, Daddy." And so all the music from, I'd say, 66 on was just kind of pouring in my head through the radio. And that kind of got me thinking, this is wonderful. Something about the music of that time just really kind of stuck in my head and made me want to do that. And then a few years later, it was the Partridge Family that got me going. That looks like a good job. I think I could do that. So I got my first guitar, probably, I think I was 8. And had a couple years of lessons and then kind of put that down for a few years. Came back to it when I was maybe 13, and then kind of started getting into the bass that way. And I think I was 14 when I discovered all things Beatles, and basically learned how to play bass by getting Beatle album, learning the bass on that one, getting another one, learning all that bass, getting another one until I had all the albums and learned all the bass lines to all those songs. And after that, I was a bass player.
Wow.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Learning Paul McCartney's parts is not a bad way to learn how to play bass guitar, right?
Yeah.
So
works for me.
So as we mentioned, throughout the podcast, we want to learn about your time with the Andersons, what you did a little bit with Chewy Marble, playing with people like Dave Davies from the Kinks and the Bangles, of course, and then your solo work. We want to definitely talk about that. But I'm really interested because you talked about your growing up in Ohio, in Toledo. And my family's all from Ohio.
Okay, what part?
My parents are from Worcester and Akron.
Okay.
And then my sister was born in Worcester also. And my mom likes to remind me, although I was born in Florida, she often reminds me, Jeff, you were conceived in Ohio. So don't forget that. So anyways, Derrick, I wanted to ask you, how did you make the move from Ohio to Southern California?
Let's see, how old was I when I moved here? It's been 30 years. I think I was 25 when I made the move. I was playing with actually I should mention the thing that aside from the Proctor Shelley and AM radio, the thing that was a big influence on me was I started playing with these friends of mine. I went to high school with one of them who was my grade. They were the Binkowski brothers. They loom large in my legend, so to speak. They were the ones who kind of got me into a lot of the Paisley underground stuff that I wouldn't have known about otherwise. We were kind of a 60s psychedelic band anyway, and we all loved the music of the 60s. And then their older brother, Rick Binkowski, worked at a record store, so he would bring home stuff and say, check this out, and then they in turn would turn me on to it. And that's how I found out about the 3 o'clock and the Bangles and Dream Syndicate. But it got to the point where I knew that I wanted to try to do something with music, and it wasn't going to happen in Toledo. And I had a friend that moved to LA who's from Toledo. He was a drummer, a friend of mine. His name was Bill Keeling. Bill moved out here in the mid 80s. So I would come out and visit periodically and just kind of get a lay for the land and see if it was a place that I thought that I could see myself living in. And I remember on a visit with him, the first show that I saw in LA was at the Coconut Teaser, and it was Kathy Valentine and the World's Cutest Killers. That was my first LA as a visitor kind of show. Bill had a band that he was playing with. He actually had a couple bands, one of which I'm still friends with all the folks today. Patria Jacobs, we were playing in, Bill was playing in Ruby Fish with Patria and Russ Chappett. So I would come out for a visit, and I would also go to rehearsals and kind of jam with them as well, and just kind of get my feet wet to see if this was a place where I wanted to land. And it seemed like, this will work. You can try to make something happen here. So picked up all my stuff and moved out here in July of 1990, not really knowing how I was going to make stuff work, but knowing that it wasn't going to happen in Toledo. So that's pretty much how I wound up here.
Wow. That's a big change, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
In a number of ways.
Yeah. And I hate winter. I despise winter. I hate being cold. Hate it. And ever since I was old enough to do anything about it, every winter I would question. I would say, why am I even here? I can't tell you how it makes me. It takes a lot to make me mad. Being cold makes me mad. So getting in a car, starting the car, not having the heat work until you're pretty much where you need to go. And just, I can't tell you how much I hate that. So California, okay.
See, I applaud that. I lived in Philadelphia for 6 years. I'm a California native. And whenever winter came around, I would start getting really mad because I hated shoveling my walk and icing my walk and doing all that stuff.
And your windshield in your car before you get in your car?
See, I didn't have a car in Philadelphia. It was subway. So I was walking through it. I'm like, oh.
I can feel it now. Yeah, the coldest I have ever been, and I still think about this from time to time. It was this was about in '87 or so. A friend of mine had a friend that lived on Staten Island, so we went to New York, and we were going to stay with this friend of my friends in Staten Island. So taking the ferry in February at 2 a.m. From New York to Staten Island, and having to be, because you got to get from the where you board the ferry, you got to be outside. There's no way around it, and but that thought makes me mad.
Soraya, let's change topics.
Well, here's the beauty of it. Now it's February in Los Angeles, and it's about 78 degrees outside. So, this is how we winter. This is a better way.
Yeah. This is fine.
So we want to give our listeners a little bit of an insight into some of your bands, and we want to start out with the Andersons. So the Andersons released one single in 1995 on Lime Vinyl Records, and two full-length CDs, Separated at Birth on the same label in 1998, and Family Secrets on Smile Records in 2001. And we would just like to know a little bit about how your band, the Andersons, got started.
Well, let's see. That was one of the bands that I was in when I first came out here was called Darcy's Kiss. They were sort of an alternative Jane's Addiction meets Smashing Pumpkins kind of band. The lead singer of that band had also previously been in a band with Will O'Brien, who was Bill Anderson, as we called him in the Andersons. So that's how I met Will, was through the singer from Darcy's Kiss. I met Robbie Rist. I think he was in his band Wonder Boy, and we, I would go see Wonder Boy play, and we would chat. And I had a demo tape at the time, and I gave one of those tapes to Robbie, and Robbie said to me, "If you ever put something together, I'm in. Just let me know when, let me know how, but yeah, I want to, let's try to do something." So, and the drummer that we had at the time, Brian Ballwinkle, he was my roommate. So that was easy. And it was largely just, I had the demo tape around, and finally thought about, let me try to put something together of my own, basically. And Adam Marsland was a friend of mine. My friend Bill from Toledo, the drummer, he was in a band with Adam as well. So I knew Adam before I ever moved out here. But Adam was writing for, I forget which music publication that he was writing for, but he did a review of my demo tape. And he also said to me, something's gonna happen in LA with this power pop thing. I can tell there's going to be some sort of scene happening. You might want to think about putting something together for yourself. So I took Adam's advice and took Robbie's advice and asked Will if he would be interested, and asked my roommate Brian if he would be interested, and then off we went. And I think we played around for a few years before we even made the first album. I think we got together in like 1995 or something like that, and didn't do the album until 98. And then by that time, Brian had already pretty much left. And yeah, that's basically how we came to be.
Wow. So question about the record label, was was Lime Vinyl your record label?
No, Lime Vinyl was actually the Ruby Fish label.
Okay.
Ruby Fish did a single, and it already had artwork, and it already had a PO box, and so I basically just appropriated that for myself. There was no real Lime Vinyl for all intents and purposes. It didn't really exist except for the logo and the PO box for mailing, but it made it look more official.
Perfect.
So that's why we went with it.
Perfect.
So what happened? So the band's last album, as Soraya mentioned, was in 2001. Did the band just dissolve and you guys went on to do other things, or?
Yeah, pretty much. We were on a number of tribute tracks for different albums, and we did I'm not sure even how many we did, but we did a lot of tribute tracks. But Bill had gotten married, He had his first kid in 2002, and just kind of decided that LA wasn't the place where he and his wife wanted to raise their kid. And he's from the Detroit area, so they actually moved back to that area in 2004. And we thought about maybe trying to keep something going, recording, or just some sort of presence, and that kind of fell by the wayside as well. And we did get, there's been a few reunion shows that we've done. We just did one in 2018. That was our last one, the 20th anniversary of Separated at Birth. Yeah, that was basically when Will picked up and moved. It wasn't the kind of band. It's such a personality-driven band that we couldn't just take someone else and put them in the slot and keep going. It was going to be Robbie and Will and myself. So once he moved, that was pretty much it. Yeah, and we did on my album. There's a track that's one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's actually the Andersons and the Bangles. So we kind of brought all those worlds together for that song.
Yeah, we definitely want to talk about that in a bit when we get to that. We have that noted. But I wanted to mention, Derrick, that I've seen you play lots of times in clubs and on larger stages. And one of the probably the first time that I saw you play is part of the International Pop Overthrow, the IPO show. And I think that's the first time I probably heard you on disc, because with Volume 3, there's an Anderson's track and a Chewy Marble track. So I think that's where I originally saw you and a lot of those guys as part of the power pop scene playing. But yeah, so I noticed that another band, I think simultaneously while you were doing the Andersons, you were also the bass player for Chewy Marble.
Right.
Was that happening at the same time? Doing both bands?
Yeah. I mean, there was a period in the 90s, mid to late 90s, where I was probably in like 5 or 6 different bands, and they were all kind of had some sort of output that they were doing. So Chewy Marble came about. Brian Casson, the main songwriter and keyboard player, was the bass player in the Wonderments. So that's how I knew Brian, because the Wonderments and the Andersons used to do a lot of shows together. And Brian, when he left the Wonderments, he wanted to pursue his own thing, which was Chewy Marble. And I was and he approached me, we got this show, can you fill in? That kind of thing. So I almost resisted being a full-time member, but it actually, Ruby Fish was the same thing. It was kind of like, we need a bass player. Can you fill in? Oh, okay. And then they stopped looking for somebody else. So, yeah. So Brian was recording that album and asked me if I would play on the album. And, sure, okay. So learned all those songs that we were pretty much doing in the set anyway, for the most part. And I can remember recording that. Rusty Squeezebox from Baby Lemonade was the engineer for it. And there was something with the bass tracks that something had to be redone with them. So I don't know what kind of I forget what kind of technical issue it was, but I can remember, can you come in and reduce this? We do this track. Okay, well, how about this one? And so I pretty much sat down and redid all the bass for the entire album, like in one sitting.
Wow.
I do remember that about that album. Wow. But it was fun. It was a good band.
Oh yeah. Great songs, fun to watch.
Yeah.
My gosh. I've got to ask, I like that story because, hey, do you mind doing one track? Oh, here are all the tracks, where Derrick Anderson puts his mark on it. One of the things that Jeff and I have talked about preparing for the show is what an interesting breadth of artists that you've worked with. Just to name a few, many people know you from working and touring with the Bangles, but also Dave Davies from the Kinks, Steve Barton of Translator, the Smithereens, the Cowsills, Matthew Sweet, just to name a few, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
You've done your homework.
And And we're curious, how do you go from working with some of the bands that you've already just mentioned to us to these sort of gigs, touring with artists like this? How does that happen?
I guess luck of the draw and who you know.
Okay.
that's pretty much it. Let's see. The Smithereens, that's an interesting story how that came about. I once again going back to the demo tape that I had, I went down to the House of Blues. They were playing, I couldn't tell you what year this was, mid 90s. I think it was, might have been, I'm not even sure if I had the Andersons going yet or not, but they were playing at the House of Blues. I had my tape in hand, went down to the sound check, kind of stood and watched them. After they were done, I went up to Pat and said, I dig your stuff. Here's mine.
Wow.
And he checked it out on the bus, when they left, and was like, this is pretty good. And I think they were playing somewhere like the Ventura Theater or somewhere kind of outside of LA the next night. So I went to that show as well. And I'm standing, kind of in the front, and he says, I see a few faces here from last night in LA. And he says, Derrick, what do you want to hear? So I knew at that point, okay, he listened, he knows who I am now. All right. And Severo Jornation, who was Mike Montero's replacement, was a friend of mine as well. So I think Pat probably said, hey, Severo, do you know this Derrick Anderson kid? And Severo's like, yeah, I know him. And when Severo couldn't do shows for whatever reason, then they would call me. And I never auditioned for them, and they never had, Pat would never do song lists. He would tell you what the first few songs were, and then he would just call them out. So you had to be like, and I would always tell him beforehand, I would say, okay, whatever you do, these songs I'm kind of sketchy on, so don't call these. But yeah, that's how I wound up with the Smithereens. And it's almost like you do one thing, somebody hears about it, that is within that circle, and then that leads you to another thing. I know the Smithereens were actually supposed to be Dave Davies' backing band. I want to say in the mid 90s, but something fell through with that. So the Smithereens knew that I had already played with Dave. So that was a little notch in my favor then, that I had actually already played with Dave. And that, and let's see. And it's almost the same thing with the Bangles and the Cowcells. The Cowcells, Bob would do a, I think it was like a semi-monthly thing at the Fox and Hounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go and see him. Let me think how this worked. Robbie Sharf, his regular bass player, whenever he couldn't do shows, I wound up subbing for Robbie. And that's kind of how I got in playing with Bob. And I can remember it was probably I can't remember, all my years are starting to blur together. What year was this? I think 2008. There was a Bob Cowsill show, and Susan was in town. Paul Cowsill was in town. John didn't have a Beach Boys gig, so he was in town. And Robbie Sharp couldn't do the gig on bass, so I got to come in and basically play this, club gig playing covers with the Cowsills.
Wow.
And to be on stage and for the first time being submerged in that harmony thing that only they do was like, that was pretty amazing. So Vicky came to that show, of course, with John. And it was months later when I got the call about auditioning for Bangles. But when I was talking to Vicky, I reminded her, I said, "No, you've seen me play before, right?" And she's like, "Oh, what?" And I said, "Yeah, I remember at the Fox and the Hounds when John came, you and John came, and you actually took a picture of me with with the Cowsill folks." And she's like, "Oh, that was you." I'm like, "Yep, that was me." So
Nice.
that helps. That was another notch in my
Wow.
favorite. So yeah, it's like who you know and what and timing and just how things kind of fall together.
Wow.
But let me interrupt you guys. I see that I can see you guys, but I just have my photo there. What do I need to do so that you guys can actually see me instead of seeing the photo of me?
Okay, so there should be a thing on the bottom. There might be a menu where it says start video. Oh, there we
There
go.
you are.
Oh, hi.
Hey,
Let's see if okay, there you go.
Perfect.
All right.
Even
Jeff.
better.
Jeff, are you realizing Derrick's demo is the golden ticket? That's like
Mhm.
Willy Wonka's golden ticket. We
Yeah.
have to get our hands on this and listen to it, because that demo, just by your own stories, has opened so many doors. I'm
Yeah.
intrigued.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love it.
One amazing point about the demo that I had before that one, the one that kind of opened up doors here, I recorded here, but I did one right before I left Toledo, and that has a song on it that I wrote in '88, I think, and my intentions were, I want to write one of those Smithereens kind of songs.
Okay.
So long story short, to kind of wind it all up, I was able to have the Smithereens as the backing band for that song on my album. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So not everybody gets to say that. So
No,
but yeah.
not many at all.
Yeah.
That is full circle right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
We had Debbie Peterson on our show, and I had asked her about since the Bangles had a few different bass periods over their career with Annette, with Mickey, and yourself, and I know there was a couple others that were in there, and I was asking her, and I think, Soraya, I kind of put my foot in my mouth because I was asking her, do you have a favorite bass player? And she said, well, that's of course difficult to answer, but I will say that Derrick and I really connected, that we really had a connection together, and she made a point of that. Am I right, Soraya? Like, she definitely
Absolutely.
said that
That's
the
great.
two of you, that the two of you made
Yeah,
a connection.
I feel the exact same way.
I was going to ask,
Definitely.
from your point of view, did you feel, I mean, it feels like you two really locked in as a rhythm section. So from your point of view, you see the same, that you
Oh
and Derrick?
yeah. Oh yeah. Most definitely. I won't, the thing that comes to mind is to say, yeah, we brought the rock, the two of us. And
Okay.
it was a different kind of rock, but it was like but yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I remember there was a show that Brian Casson came to, and it was the first time that he had seen me with them, and he said, yeah, you guys are like Pete and Bruce Thomas.
Ooh,
And I was like, oh wow, okay.
I'm there. All right.
but yeah,
Nice.
but yeah, that says something.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's more than something. I'm sorry. That's electric. I like that. Okay, I have to ask, and me being just fangirling for a minute. Any special moments or anything stand out that you'd like to share with our listeners about touring or working with the Bangles? Like any one moment or something that really jumped out to you?
Yeah, all of it.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it.
No, I mean, I think early on I kind of tried to equate what that whole experience was, and it was almost like you're in high school and there's these girls that are a little bit older than you, and you don't really have any classes together because they're older than you, but you totally would have found each other and hung out with each other because they were so cool and into such great music and the same kind of music that I was into. and there was just sort of an immediate camaraderie between all of us. And I think that's probably because their idea when they were auditioning bass players was they were going to just have a kind of a rotating group of guest bass players.
Okay.
And so I was going to be just kind of one of many. But I think when I went in and met with them and just kind of hung out and played, and it was like, we like this guy. This is good. So yeah, it's like I can't say. Yeah, it wasn't like fanboy, like, ooh, it was like, these are cool folks. They do cool music. I've known about it forever. I know all the, when I remember when I went to audition, I think I was the last one up, and I knew some of the people that had auditioned as well, that were friends of mine and friends of theirs. And I said, I think it was only 4 songs. I couldn't tell you which 4 they were now, but I remember saying, okay, well, I'm here. There's nobody after me. I want to play this song. I want to play this song. I want to play this song. I want to play. So
4. Okay. 4.
That 4 is not enough. If I'm here and I know your stuff anyway, no, we play some more.
Oh my gosh, I love
So
that.
I'm assuming there wasn't a moment like what you told the Smithereens. Hey, these couple of songs I'm not jiving with yet, but no.
Yeah. No.
Everything was fair game.
Yeah.
Love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Derrick's my kind of musician. I like it.
So Derrick, when you got the gig or started playing with the Bangles, did you set out to learn Annette's parts and Mickey's parts exactly how they play them, or did you want to put in a little bit of Derrick into it, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to use those parts as your springboard, because those are the parts that those parts make the songs do what they do. But yeah, I think you can't help but put a little bit of yourself into it. So yeah, I'd like to think that I kind of found the fine line to bring both of those elements together when I played with them.
Yeah, I did notice at a couple of shows that I saw that, I don't know if anybody else noticed, but I felt like there was some personality coming out in those while still maintaining the essence of the original. So I was like, yeah, there's some Derrick in there, because I'm familiar with the Andersons. I'm familiar with Chewy Marble before I ever saw you play with the Bangles. So when you started playing with them, and I think one of the first shows I might have saw you with was in San Diego. I think it was called the 4th and B Club or something like that. I think that might have been. Did you play with them in San Diego?
I'm trying to. I think we played the House of Blues in San Diego.
Maybe that's what it was. But I remember that was the first time, and I'm like, oh, that's the Andersons guy. And I could hear some of the bass lines that yep, true to the original, but that's Derrick too. So that's why I was asking.
Abe Laborio Jr. He's a great example of doing that with Beatles stuff. He's not just copying the Ringo bits, but the feel that he brings is like very much how those songs need to feel to be up and running and doing what they do. But yet he totally puts his own personality into them as well.
I love that. So I did want to bring up another record that you played on, and it's a connection with Vicky, and it's the Psycho Sisters record. So they put out the album in 2014, Up on the Chair Beatrice, and you played on that as well, right?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, how is that being in the studio with? So you've played with the Castles, you've played with the Bangles, and here you are with the two of them, Susan and Vicky. How was it laying down those tracks?
It was a lot of fun. The way that kind of came about, I think we recorded it. It didn't come out until 2014, but it was recorded in, I think it was 2011 and 2012.
Oh wow!
And it was at Dockside Studios in Louisiana. And when they were kind of making noise, Vicky and Susan, that they were going to try to record it, I said to them both, and I can remember backstage telling them both, I need to play on this. When you guys actually do this, I need to play on this. And they were like, oh, okay. So they had tape demos for a few of the songs that I had beforehand, but for the most part, a lot of it was just sort of we would record a track and they would kind of run it down with everybody. Here's how it goes, and then we just go in, put the headphones on, and then try to bang something out. So it was a pretty. I think it was over a period of 3 days. That's the way the dockside works. Is you pretty much move in there. And they have there's like they have separate quarters for you to stay and sleep, and then there's a studio in a separate building, and it's all kind of one compound. So we just kind of you bring your suitcases and your instruments and you plop them down, and then you go and have something to eat and walk out to the studio and do your thing. And that's pretty much how that came together. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I know there were some tracks where John Cowsill was the drummer, and then some tracks where Susan's husband Russ was the drummer. So it was great playing because each of their styles were a little bit different too. So it was great kind of bringing that all together and making that whole thing happen.
I'm glad they listened to you when you told them that you had to be on their record. So
yeah, I'm glad they did too.
So I want to just backtrack a little bit, talking about two different shows. So we mentioned 2013. We see you at the benefit for Education Through Music LA at the Fonda in December for this Paisley Underground reunion. But also we were just wondering, okay, first of all, I gotta say, every time I've seen Derrick on stage, it's this smile and you just look like you're having a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Was that night a ton of fun?
Oh, how would it not be? What about that night would be like, oh,
right?
Another gig. How much do I get paid? When's this gonna be over? No, are you kidding? It was fantastic.
See, like I'm thinking about, here's this guy that, forgive me if I get the last name wrong, the Makowski brothers.
Bingkowski.
Bingkowski.
Right.
I'm gonna Bingkowski.
Soraya is the note taker.
I write everything down. The Bingkowski brothers, listening to one brother say, "Hey, listen to this," and Bangles Dream Syndicate at 3:00, and then boom, you're on stage with them.
Yeah. That's
insanity.
Yeah, one of those other things that doesn't happen to everybody.
Man, it happens to Derrick Anderson. The Magic Man. That's what I'm gonna start calling you now. You're the Magic Man.
So I think
that band with the Bingkowski brothers, we actually used to do. I think we did Jet Fighter.
Wow.
By the 3:00, and I think we did Her Head's Revolving too, as I recall. Wow. So yeah. And I remember we used to have to go, being from Toledo, nobody on that indie level really comes through Toledo. So you had to go to Detroit to see anybody worth seeing. So a lot of those bands we saw at St. Andrews Hall up in Detroit. And so, yeah, getting to see them at that point, and then decades later, getting to share a stage with them is yeah.
That's cool. Wow. Obviously, we're big fans. I mean,
yes,
our namesake. So Derrick, on that show, well, actually, there was two shows because there was the San Francisco show, I think, the night before, these Paisley Underground bands.
Fillmore.
Yeah. So was that particular show playing with the Bangles? Because I know Vicky introduced you guys as the Bangs. For this night, we're the Bangs again. Was that any different than any of the other shows that you played with them? Playing as the Bangs with these other Paisley Underground bands?
It was different in that it's that show with those bands, like because I didn't get to see. I wish I did live in LA in the early 80s and got to see all those bands when the Paisley Underground scene was happening. Of course, we knew about it, but yeah, I can almost imagine how cool it would have been to be able to see them in their heyday doing the thing that they do all together. So to be able to actually experience that firsthand, and be on the stage and help create that, yeah, um, no complaints from me.
You were amazing that night. And Soraya
Yes.
and I often look back at that night as a very, very special night for us for obvious reasons. But there just seemed to be a lot of love between the bands, a lot of
Oh
love in the
yeah.
audience. We were up against the stage right up front. So, and you killed it that night, I gotta
Oh,
say.
ridiculous.
Yeah, you totally killed it. And Soraya's not joking about that smile that's on your face, which is very infectious. So,
No,
Oh,
and look, Derrick, we've seen you at Wild Honey benefits. We've seen you with your own projects. We've seen you at backyard shows. We're gonna get here in a minute, but we've seen you, and it's just this infectious joy. You're just always smiling, and as a fan, you just look and go, I wonder if he's really having that much fun. And absolutely, now you've just confirmed it to me. I sense it, Jeff senses it, everybody senses it, and we love watching you play. We feed off of that energy.
Oh,
So
thank
it's
you.
nice to hear
Yeah,
that.
oh, that's as it should be. That actually that reminds me. I can remember when the Police had their reunion show, like 10, 18 years ago at the Hollywood Bowl, and I remember watching them, and they seemed like they were miserable, and I was like, should I be having fun? Because you guys don't look like you sound great. You're all playing great. It's great to hear these songs, but I don't know if you guys are having any fun at all. So
yeah.
am I having fun? I don't know. So yeah, that,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw that same tour in San Diego with Elvis Costello as the opening act, and
yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. They looked like they could care less about each other or the music, which is
yeah.
and we were there excited to get to hear the Police after all these years. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So Derrick, I have another question, and I often put my foot in my mouth asking questions that I probably shouldn't ask, or maybe they're not softball. But I had a question about December 2016, and the Bengals had a run of 3 shows at the Whiskey A Go Go, which you were there. It was awesome. I went on the night that the Pandoras were the opening act. I think Soraya, you were there for the last, maybe. Yeah. Okay, or the Muffs. One of the two. You were at a different show than I went to.
Yeah.
But and you guys killed it at the Whiskey. The videos that I saw of the 2 nights that I wasn't there, and then the night that I was there was amazing. But then original bass player Annette Zelenskis gets asked up to guest on a couple songs, and you looked like you were happy with it. Did you have any concerns at that point? Like, uh-oh, the gig is up.
Oh no. I mean, in a way, I certainly don't mind having kept the seat warm for her all those years. I mean, that's her gig. She was there first. Literally, she was there first. So I remember going to rehearsals for that, and I've known Annette for years anyway. I think with blood in the saddle.
Blood on the Saddle, yeah.
Yeah, Anderson's and her band. We had done shows together, so I knew her anyway.
Oh.
But when she came to the auditions, I'm not auditions for the rehearsals for those shows. Yeah, she she comes in and she's kind of setting up and getting ready to play, and I said, the 14-year-old fanboy in me is like hysterical right now.
Yes. Yeah. And knowing how Annette is, I bet she was probably thinking, I've got to learn Derrick's parts because, yeah, she's not a come in and dominate the show kind of person, right? She's like she's got a great personality, and
yeah. But yeah, I was more than glad to hand over the bass and let her do her thing.
All right. I was wondering about that because you had that was a sweet gig, right? Playing bass for the Bangles, and that was kind of the transition back.
Yeah. exactly.
Soraya, what do you got next?
Oh, okay. So Jeff, first of all, I want you to be jealous because this says to Soraya, right? Which Mr. Anderson signed for me. Yes, he did at a backyard
Mm-hmm.
Wild Honey backyard show. So thank you
My,
so
no
much.
signature on this one. And before you ask a question, sorry, I will say best song of 2017. Send Me Down a Sign. I
Oh,
could.
thanks.
The bad part about having that as the leadoff track, I never got past track 1 for like 3 weeks. It was I could not stop playing that song, but easily my favorite song of 2017.
Okay.
Nice,
So
nice.
now I'm going to add to this. So Jeff and I have talked about how during this last year, music has been a saving grace. And it's the one thing that just kind of keeps us going. And let me tell you, there are days and there are days and there are days where Phyllis and Sharon come up on my old Bluetooth musical selection in the car. And that, first of all, I start speeding. And I'm speeding down no matter street, highway, whatever. I'm there and I'm yelling and screaming. It is, first of all, it's just one of those songs that it gets me all revved up. I love it. But I mean, there are so many fantastic tracks. Send Me Down a Sign was one of the ones that I was like, Jeff, like I got stuck on that song for a while because it was really poignant and beautiful. And it came to me at a moment where that was the message that I was ready to hear. So thank you. Just thank you. Okay.
My pleasure.
Now let me pose a more organized question. So tying most of the musical connections that we've talked about with you today, you released this in 2017, A World of My Own, a solo album. And Jeff and I, we can't love it more than we've already told you. We've gushed and fangirled about it. But so on this one, you bring in a lot of guests, and you've already mentioned quite a few to help you record the song. So members of the Andersons, the Bangles, the Smithereens, Matthew Sweet, many, many more. We want to know because we're also aware of the, a little bit of the story, the backstory of this, that it was over a period of time. So talk to us a little bit about the process of writing and recording these songs over the time that it took.
It took a really long time. I would say probably starting in 2005, I started hearing from people, when are you going to make a record? And I was like, oh, yeah, well, I just finished the Andersons. What do you want? But Dan Matavina in particular, who, you guys know Dan Matavina? He is an engineer. He did some, he was behind the not reissues. I think they were demos that Pete Ham did that were released on Ryko Disc, like maybe 25 years ago at this point. But Dan brought me in to play bass over some of the Pete Ham demos, and so that's how we met. So he would kind of keep in contact with me throughout the years, and he was probably the proponent guy who every year, January 1st, you gonna make a record this year? You gonna make a record? And I was like, yeah, Dan, I'll get to it. So it was probably around, I think, 2014 when I actually thought, all right, it is time now. Let's start seeing how I'm going to do this. And I didn't really set out with a method about how I was going to do it. But I knew that I had all these people in my musical orbit that I knew that I could call on. And so it was just a matter of, some of the songs were older songs that just never had a chance to see the light of day, but I always loved. One song the Andersons actually recorded that was on our single, and we used to do it in the band, but it was never on a CD of ours. And the version that we did was not the version that I had in mind when I wrote it. I wanted it to be like a minute and a half, kind of like, verse, chorus, done, simple song. So that wound up on the record as well. But Yeah, once I knew that it was time to start really making something, I began to go through the songs and think about who would be ideally suited on which track, and then I just over time would make the call. Hey, you want to play on a song on my record? And no one said no. Everybody was into it and more than happy to help. And and of course by that time I had I could draw on the Bangles to do some stuff like. And Greg Hilfman, the Bangles keyboard player, he's on a few tracks, and even Dennis Taylor, who was the Bangles guitar tech, who actually auditioned right before me. He's on a bunch of stuff as well. We lost Dennis a few months back. He had a heart attack, and we lost him. But he's on a bunch of tracks on the record. So yeah, it was just pretty much who I could get for whatever song, and I just happened to have all these people orbiting my universe that I could call on, and they were more than happy to do their thing.
I've got to say, Derrick, that whether it's the Andersons or your own record or World of My Own, your melodies, your vocal melodies are insanely catchy and just
Beautiful.
yeah, they just
Thanks.
just gets me. So now that we've talked to you, and I didn't make the connection, but you've mentioned the AM radio that you're listening to in Toledo and listening to the Partridge Family. Okay, I get it. I get where you're coming from, Derrick. I get it.
Yeah.
Very catchy, very catchy. But how did Omnivore come to be involved to release the record?
I think that was pretty much through Pat Thomas. He was my partner, Jim Despisa, who Jim's on the record a lot as well. But Jim was friends with Pat, and Pat had a connection to Omnivore. And when I think I was just about done mixing the whole thing and had a working version of it, and Jim gave that to Pat because I had kind of hoped, as I was recording it and as I was seeing how it was sounding and knowing who was on it, that it would be pretty much right up Omnivore's alley. And once Pat had it, Pat thought the same thing and passed it on to Cheryl over there. And one thing led to another, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll license this from you."
Wow.
So
nice.
That's how that came to be.
Telling you, Jeff, he's the magic man.
Yeah.
All right.
It's funny that you mentioned Pat because I was just looking at my text and Pat's sending me text messages about Kiss. So right when you're talking about Pat, I'm getting about Kiss.
See, he knows. He knows.
I think he knows.
The force in the universe is out there. We wanted to ask you just a question, obviously about the video for When I Was Your Man, which features Debbie and Vicki Peterson of the Bangles and the late great Kim Shattuck.
Yeah.
First of all, it's a really fun video to watch.
So fun.
And
It's
I'm
so
really
fun.
glad that we have it. And we're just curious about this video shoot because that must have been fun. I know it's work, but with that crew, that must have been really fun.
Oh yeah. How could it not be? That's the way that came to be. Once again, going back to Dan Matavina. Dan had the idea. He says, I know this. I have this friend of mine, this videographer friend. We want to do a video for something from the album. And the more I thought about it, it was like, well, that song would have been the obvious choice for video. Let me see if I can get Kim and Vicki and Debbie and see if they're interested in doing something. And of course, they were. And I knew that the simplest, cheapest way to do something would be just have a white background. And Dan thought the same thing. And I remember Dan and I went out for lunch to kind of discuss things. And Dan said, "Yeah, we could put up some white sheets." And I was like, because I have a TV background.
Okay.
So I was like, "No, you can't do nothing with no white. This ain't no garage thing. No, you let me find a studio that has a nice white thing that we can do this on. So I I got online and kind of did some research into some different studios and things, and there was one that had the white psych background wall, and they were relatively cheap, and they did a block of 4 hours for I forget what the price was, but it was a pretty low price, and they basically had everything there. So Dan and I and the videographer, we all went and checked it out, and we were like, yeah, this will work. So we set up a date, and we all went down, and they had the drum kit there, so Debbie didn't have to bring anything. And Dan kind of had his shots planned out and how he wanted it to look and what he wanted to do, and the whole Brady Bunch thing at the end, that was Dan's idea. Okay. That was solely his thing. But yeah, we just went down and 4 hours, the whole thing, in out.
Wow.
In, carry your stuff in, carry your stuff out the door, 4 hours.
Wow.
And yeah.
That video is so much fun, Derrick. It's just so much fun.
Right?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
see, key point, no garage, studio.
Yes.
No garage.
No white she's hanging up. No.
So, Soraya, you were bragging about your record that had a
Yes, okay, this is now my jealousy part.
Okay, so I have this little signature here from this record, which Derrick, I think is your latest single, right? So
yeah.
It's a cover of the Don't Lose Your Temper by XTC. The flip side is an artist that you might be familiar with, Jim LaSpisa. And him and Rob do Dear Madam Barnum. But this single released on Future Man Records and it's part of a double CD collection, I think, Garden of Earthly Delights, the XTC celebration. How did this come about? And by the way, this is fantastic, and I want to talk about the video for this after. Yeah. So how did you get involved with this project?
That was Keith Klingensmith from Future Man Records. He he had the thought to do the XTC tribute album, and he sent me a text and said, hey, do you want to be involved with this and pick a song? And I said, yeah, I most certainly do. And I kind of had to go. I knew that I wanted to find a song that was that it was easy to kind of take a little bit of the Andy Partridge croakiness out and inject something else into it. So I was kind of going through the different albums, and I remembered Don't Lose Your Temper, and I thought maybe I can kind of do more of a sort of squeeze by way of Motown-y kind of vibe thing with sax in there, and so I demoed that up, and I knew that Robbie Riss would be great on drums, and I knew Mike Simmons, who I've known for decades, that he would be great on guitar because he's a huge XCC guy. Mm-hmm. And just booked the studio. Steve Reffling, who was the producer and engineer for my record, I did it with him. And it came out pretty good.
It's really good, yeah. And the video is a lot of fun too. I love those kind of videos that have a very loose beginning where it's all like not together yet, and it's kind of all over the place, and everybody's getting ready and false starts and whatnot, and then all of a sudden it all comes together. That video is so much fun. Is that video? Is any of that actual recording, or is that stage for the video?
It's pretty much the it's the recording that's in the video is of course the final mixed version, but the tracks, I guess let me digress a bit by saying I had no idea that Mike Simmons was doing this. Oh. I knew that he had his phone up and he was kind of videotaping stuff, not making videos of stuff, and I knew when I did my vocal that he was in the room and he was shooting that as well. and I thought he was kind of doing it for prosperity's sake. And it was maybe 2 days later that he texted me this video. And I was like, I had no idea that you were doing this, or that you were doing this for the purpose of kind of putting something together. And I said, but I'm glad you did, because this is pretty cool.
It's very cool. In my opinion, it's very cool. I love that video. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's a great song. But again, one of those things where you could hear things about the original version, but it's got the Andersons kind of feel in it too, to me. So that is so Derrick Anderson. So and the flip side's not too bad either if you buy the single. So yeah.
They did all right with that. Yeah. But yeah, that whole thing was Jim's idea. I think the CD had been out for a few months or so, and Jim liked the idea of just doing a short run 45, just kind of as just to have it be out there in the world, kind of. And he kind of did a little survey of sorts to see if there was any interest in people actually buying it, so that it could at least pay for itself. You know, that the whole thing was, can I make this and can it pay for itself, and then it will be in this world. It will exist in this world. So it looked like it's a go. People are interested enough to make it pay for itself, and so he kind of did some research about who's best to go with doing the short run vinyl thing, and weeks later, there it was in our hands.
Very cool. I'm so glad that he did that. Being a vinyl nut myself, so I'm glad to have your guys' songs on vinyl.
Yeah,
singles are a great format too for me. So Derrick, before we let you go, and I know Soraya has one last question that she usually asks our artists. I wanted to ask you, being that February, the shortest month of the year, is Black History Month, right? Unfortunately, the shortest month of the year gets Black History Month.
Yeah, it's just who's the first one to get killed in the horror films? It's us. It's always us.
But I wanted to ask you, I think, Soraya, that Derrick's probably our first African-American guest. I know a lot of Latin guests, but anyways, has race ever been an issue in the scenes that you've played?
No, never.
Cool.
Never. I would almost say in my life period, it's never been an issue.
Excellent.
I can when I was, let me digress a bit. When I was 2, my dad worked in the government. He got transferred from Toledo to France. So I'm 2 years old. I'm playing with these white French kids, learning how to speak French as a 2-year-old. And so one might say from that point on, it's never been an issue in my life at all.
Excellent. Very cool.
All right. Do you still speak French?
It always sounds so familiar to me, just the sounds of it, but no.
Alors, nous parlerons en français.
No. Oui.
How long were you and your family in France?
For about I think we were in France for almost 2 years, and we were in Germany for maybe a year, not almost a year, I think. And then we came back to the States in '67.
I'm not gonna bust out my broken old awful German.
Yeah.
I won't do that.
My French was a lot better. I didn't really learn anything at all. I don't know why. I don't think I was there long enough. But French, I was, you're at that age where you're just absorbing everything.
Yeah.
So, but I have definite memories of being over there. And one in particular, I have always, ever since I can remember pretty much, Mount Rushmore has made me uneasy. Just the sight of Mount Rushmore makes me, to this day, makes me uneasy. And I never really thought about why or questioned why until I was probably in my early 20s, I think like Entertainment Tonight was doing a Hitchcock retrospective. And they showed a clip from North by Northwest. And I turned to my mom and I said, when we were in France, and I was like 3 or so, did you guys take me with you to see North by Northwest? And she said, yeah. And I said, do you know what you did to me?
Oh, mama.
Wow. Hitchcock at 3. That's probably, I mean,
That's deep. That's a deep 3-year-old.
yeah. I mean, that's not like, it's not like Moana or Frozen, right?
And just imagine this little 3-year-old kid in French going, do you know what my parents took me to see at the theater? They took me to see Hitchcock. Can you imagine? Such a
big heads, much more heads. And they're climbing on their heads.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so then it begs the question, have you, now as an adult and now as an aware person making the connection, have you ever gone?
I don't want to go to Mount Rushmore. No.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Derrick. I'm with you.
I had to ask the question. I've never been either, so
I haven't either.
who knew? Okay, Derrick, we have to ask, because first of all, it's just been such a pleasure to sit and chat with you about your work, and I love listening to musicians talk about their craft. Jeff is a musician. I'm not. I'm all fan. What can we expect in the future from you? Like what are you working on, or what can fans look forward to?
Well, the Andersons' second album is actually going to be re-released. Technically, I think the release date was going to be February 5th, and it was going to be let's see, I have it right here. Liberation Hall. They're putting it out through Smile Records. The thing about that is quality control. They had a tea break when it came to my record to reissue with this. They had a tea break in a different part of the world, and they were on it for a really long time. And when they came back, it was already done. So there's 2 tracks missing.
Oh no.
And I knew about this through Mike Simmons. He texted me and he said, do you know there's 2 tracks missing from your record and there's some missing from ours? So I got on, I texted Tony Valenciano, who's behind it, and I said, well, what's going on? And he said, oh no, yours is fine. It's there were some problems with the Sparkle Jets one, but Anderson's is okay. And you should be getting some in the mail in a couple of days. So it came in the mail, and I put it on in the car, and I'm listening, and I hadn't listened to it in years, but you know, your mind kind of knows what the next song is supposed to be. And I was like, no, something is missing here. And then later on in the sequence, no, something's missing here. So I got home, put it on, looked at the how it's laid out on the back cover, and sure enough, there's 2 tracks missing. So Tony he says, well, we can do and it's a short run anyway on it. It's pretty much meant to be a digital only release, but I think for a few artists, he did a short run of like 500 discs. Long story short, I told him the more that I thought about it, they have to be recalled, because this should not be put out in the world again incomplete with these tracks missing. It's got some bonus tracks on it, but you shouldn't have the album be missing anything.
Okay.
For the 10 people who might want it, they should have the whole thing and not something. Yeah. So, and I checked the digital realm. It's on Apple Music, but it also has those same 2 tracks missing. So he's got to pull that down, put the tracks up, and then we submit it to Apple Music and all the digital platforms out there. Okay. So that will be coming out soon. The way it's supposed to. Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Yeah. And okay. I'm I'd say all of 2020, I felt like creatively just gone. It just took everything, every ounce of even wanting to be creative. I just didn't feel like it. It's like, I'm sure there are people who was like, this is the catalyst to get me going and wanting to do all kinds of stuff. For me, it was like, there's my bass over there, and it's looking good, leaning up against that wall there. It looks real good. There's my guitar. Yep, still there. But I just didn't have the spirit to do anything. Steve Barton had I think 7 tracks that he wanted some bass on. So this was maybe late summer. So I actually did that and picked up the bass and kind of learned his stuff. And that kind of got me going a little bit. Okay. And then as the months went on in 2020, I kind of started feeling a little bit creative, a little bit more. And now I'm actually starting to make demos for stuff for the next record.
Yes. So I was hoping and waiting and just hoping and waiting that this was going to come. So
yeah. So yeah, and I got, there's plenty of stuff that's already written, but plenty of stuff that I'm kind of writing now. But long story short, yeah, this year I am going to start doing something.
Okay. Well, we're here for every single bit of it.
Yes.
So
yes, we are.
Whenever we have an open door policy. Whenever you want to come on, talk about it, share it, please do. We're more than receptive, and we love everything Derrick Anderson. So
yes, we do.
And very last question: where can our listeners go and buy your music, whether it's World of My Own or the single that Jeff has that I don't, that I'm extremely jealous and need to fix that very quickly? Where can people find these things?
Probably I'd say Amazon for sure. Amazon's the best point for everything. And digitally, it's my album's out there on everything. It's on Apple Music. It's on Spotify and all the digital platforms. And I know the first Anderson's record is also out there digitally. So yeah, it's just do a search. It should come up.
And if people want to follow you on social media, are you on any of the social media platforms that you wouldn't mind people following you on?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, and there's DerrickAndersonMusic.com, although I don't do a lot to kind of update it because largely there's nothing to update it with.
It's a great site though. It is a great site though.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Derrick Anderson.
And we'll share a link on our Facebook page and when we and on our social media too. So Facebook, Amazon, digital platforms. We can find Andersons. We can find Derrick Anderson's, and the single, which I need.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Exactly. But
you don't have the single.
Hey, people got to cut me some slack during these pandemic times. My brain is kind of boop. So, yes. Thumbs down.
Send me your address, and I think I'll see if Jim has some here that maybe we can get to you.
Derrick Anderson,
no promises.
You are an angel.
I'll see what he has.
I'm telling you, Jeff, he's the magic man.
Agreed.
Magic man. Because I am going to do it, Derrick. I am going to do it. Okay, Jeff, before we let Derrick go, I have to say, the very first time I met Derrick Anderson in person was in the lobby of a theater in LA for Cat Stevens. And he walks in. He walks in drinking hand. I'm with Lena Litonwa, Rory Litonwa. I think I was with you too. And you and Chris, I think you were there.
We were there, but I don't remember meeting Derrick.
And it happened to be, we were in the lobby and Derrick Anderson and Jim Lespisa began walking in and say, hello. I'd never seen Derrick before. Smile, ear to ear, just happy. I knew it was just happy to be in a place where music was being played and things that he liked. But I remember remarking, what a nice guy. And Lena Lee told
have you all fooled.
He's like that all the time. She said, he is one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet.
Everybody we've talked to that we've mentioned your name, Derrick, everybody says that. So.
Literally.
Oh,
Literally beautiful. I mean, I've met Jim Laspiza a number of times, and he's the sweetest guy. But I'd never met you before, and you were just so sweet and so nice and engaging. And we chatted for, the group kind of chit chatted for a little bit, and then you went off your way. And I said, "Wow, what a nice guy." So
okay.
just know,
I just can't help it.
People have wonderful opinions about you, and your music speaks for itself. We love this and everything you're involved in. So please, people,
And
go
this.
get.
And
Mine's coming in the mail. Mine's coming in the mail. But once again, Derrick Anderson, thank you so much for joining us today and letting us ask all our questions. We really appreciate it. And again, anytime, we're always here and ready to welcome you back.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, good to know. Yeah, I'm not, I've always been sort of how would I say? I was the kid in the back of the classroom, kind of just observing stuff, not the one that's up engaging and talk. So doing any sort of interview type things, I'm always like, who wants to hear what I had to say anyway? And I don't want to do it. So which is why it took me a while to get back to you guys about doing this in the first place. But
we've had requests for you specifically.
Many.
So we said we've been working on this. This is on our list, but yeah, we've had requests to hear from you. So not just us two. So
yeah, we try not to be pests.
Does my mom know where you guys are? Is that
my mom? Not mom.
She's been listening the whole time. But thank you so much. And
Yes,
this was just super fun. Can't wait to do it again with new material.
Yeah, you guys will be the first to know.
Woo! I like that. Exclusive.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Derrick. We really appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, you guys have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
Okay. All right. And thanks for all the music.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Derrick.
Okay, take care. See you guys soon.
Okay.
How do I turn this off?
There's one way.
Oh yeah, leave. Okay. Okay. Bye.
Oh, Soraya, that was fun. So all of those people who have said Derrick is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Done.
I think, yeah. I don't think they were lying. And for those of you who don't have this album,
you need it.
You definitely need it.
If for nothing else, one, he's a great musician, but two, like, he writes a great song with a great hook.
Great hooks, yes.
And now that we heard about his background, AM radio, Partridge Family, but also some of his own musical heroes that he's talked about, you can already hear that. What is blowing my mind, Jeff, is here's a guy who says, I'm going to leave Toledo. I'm going to go to LA. 1990 shows up. But were you paying attention to that timeline? It's like he gets here in 90. The Andersons release in 95, 98, 2001. And you're like, and then like, here's that demo, dude. I am serious. We got to find somebody who'll let us listen to that demo.
Yes.
Because I can just hear like, oh yeah, here's my demo. Gives it to someone in the Smithereens. A day later, he's at another show and they go, Derrick Anderson. What?
Yeah.
It's amazing. But that demo was this great golden ticket.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love listening to him talk about music and playing with other musicians and his own creative process. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. It's no surprise to me. And I don't think I knew that about the Bangles, where they were going to have a revolving door of bass players. I don't recall. But it's no surprise to me that once Derrick is in playing a couple rehearsals or shows with the band, that he's going to become more permanent than just a cast of characters revolving through. Because I mean, just look at the guy. He's just what a sweetheart. And as you brought up a couple times, just watching him perform, it's
Joy.
you cannot be sad and watch Derrick Anderson play bass.
I think it's impossible.
Yeah, yeah. Or listen to the music. You cannot
And
be
the
sad and
music
listen
is
to.
just super good, whether it's the Andersons and Chewy Marble. I mean, I'm still pretty amazed at that timeline, at arriving in the early 90s, and literally it's just, one thing builds on another, builds on another. To me, it's just really neat. And I don't think you could find someone more, I hate to use the word humble, but that's it, like, about his own productivity. I was the guy in the back of the class that, just kind of watched, and, I was a little weary about being interviewed. Couldn't be more pleasant, couldn't be more open and honest. But also, I love the fact that this is a guy that loves being a musician. And man, I'm glad I didn't go to that Police reunion because it sounds like I would have been mad seeing a bunch of guys on stage that looked like they wanted to be anywhere but there.
Especially after seeing the opening act, Elvis Costello, who's high on your echelon of artists, who came out and killed it and was totally into it and wanting to be there. And then the Police came out, but I was happy to get to see them. But I do recognize what Derrick said when he was talking about them, but I never got to see them before they broke up, so it was cool for me to see the reunion show. But I would much rather see a guy on stage who wants to be there and is having so much joy as Derrick Anderson is. I'd rather see that any day of the week.
I like hearing about some of the people he's worked with and some of the people that he continues to work with, because there were quite a few names that kept getting repeated, I wanted to work on this, so I knew Robbie Riss would be into it. I knew some, bum, 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 bum. And I think that speaks to another quality of his, and that is, he seems to find and create a community of like-minded people who enjoy playing music and are good at it and like to share it. And and I'm sorry, any guy that goes up to Vicky Peterson and says, "You've already seen me, you've seen me play, you know me," that guy is A+ in my book.
Agreed.
A+.
I agreed. Yeah.
Super awesome. But again, so if any of you do not already have his solo album or are looking for some of his previous works with Chewy Marble, the Andersons, he already let us know. Yeah, World of My Own is out, he said. Amazon, all the digital platforms. You can even try DerrickAndersonMusic.com. And he's on Facebook. Reach out and support the musicians that you love, because this has been a really rough year. And I liked, I thought he was really, really honest when he told us, 2020, I just kind of lacked that creative flow. And I didn't have anything. And now, like, he's kind of turning the corner. I like hearing that. I think it's an honest assessment, and it's not just us fans that are kind of feeling a little rudderless. It's our favorite musicians are too. And then when they're ready to produce and share things with us, support it, do it, go buy it. Because like, I like how he said, because I had seen some of the feelers that were sent out about the XTC tribute album, like whether people would be interested in buying vinyl for that. And things now are changing, the dynamics of how music is getting released. So participate. this, you know, they're giving us a very active role as fans and music buyers. And I think we have to really take advantage of that. But Jeff, this ain't no garage.
No,
This ain't no garage, no sheets.
no,
This is all the way or no way. And I'm sorry, if he doesn't write a song called This Ain't No Garage, that's a missed opportunity.
Agreed.
But once again, thank you, Derrick Anderson. Jeff,
Thank you.
mi gente, a grubiar.
Groove on, Paisley people.